Okay, today we're going to learn, I said in the beginning, the Sicha that's connected to the Maimer we learned in the past 2 weeks on Shlach Tovshin Yurav. So Shlach Tovshin Yurav, we learned the Maimer, that discussed the Meraglim, and the difference between the Meraglim. Moshe wanted to conquer the land of the seven nations, to conquer even the Madreg of Tzaddikim, even to conquer the level of a person's Midos. Yeshua was able to send Meraglim to Yerichoi, which is smell, which is like the Begodim, which is Machshavah Divrei Maisa, the idea of the Beinani, to conquer your speech, your thought, speech, and action. But like in every Sicha and every Maimer, the Rebbe said it at Shabbos at a very short Farbrengen. This is a Farbrengen that's very powerful Farbrengen. It's not going to be simple. It's not a simple subject at all, but it's part of the Farbrengen, and we're going to learn it. So it's Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Shlach Mevorchim Tammuz Tavshin. So the Rebbe, this is Sicha that's connected to the Maimer that the Rebbe Farbring and Shlach Mevorchim, like this week, the month of Tammuz in Chutz La'aretz, from the year Tavshin Rav. Now there's a little star. Let's see the star. The star says like this: Rei Michtav Dal Tammuz Shonazug. The Rebbe sent a letter to someone, penned it on the 4th of Tammuz of that same year, so which is a few days after this Farbring is Shabbos Mevorchim, obviously before Tammuz. Eretz Yisroel Chelek Amid Shin Nun Tes, in the Rebbe's letters, 4th volume, page 359. So in the letter, the Rebbe writes like this: Es Zechiret in Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Shlach. It was spoken on Shabbos Kodesh, the Shabbos Shlach. This is our Farbring, and the Rebbe is referring to the Farbring we're about to learn. About the sin of the Meraglim. The point over there is, I'm not sure if this is what the Rebbe wrote, or this is part of what the editor is writing, that not everything do we have in front of us. All we have is a part of the Farbrengen. So this is the editor's note. The editor is saying that either we're missing part of the Farbrengen because we have a very short Farbrengen. From the letter, it seems the Rebbe spoke much more. Or in the letter, the Rebbe added what he didn't speak in the Farbrengen. So for more information, one should read Eretz Yisroel Chelek Dal, page 3, Shin Nun Tes, 359. So the Rebbe says like this: this Farbrengen. It's the first Farbrengen that the Rebbe is Farbrengen after Shabbos, which is Shabbos Mevorchim Tammuz. That after Matan Torah, we also get the second set of luchos. Because what happened in between, meaning the Chet HaEgel, then we have this week's Parsha, which is the sin of the Meraglim, of the spies, Parshas as is known. If not for the sin of their spies, we would have entered the land with Moshe, because the Jews would have gone right into the land, and then the Mevorchim, and all that happened transpired in the 40 years, and included in that was the reason Moshe didn't go into the land. But if not for the sin of the Meraglim, we would have gone in with Moshe right away. And then it would have been a complete geula, a complete redemption. But that's not what happened. It was a sin. It turned out that there was 40 years, and there was the Mevorchim, and there was the punishment, and Moshe didn't bring us in the land. Footnote number 1, it says, the Rebbe was crying when he spoke this little talk before the Maimer. And therefore it wasn't a full redemption because we didn't go with Moshe Rabbeinu. Like he says in the Maimer, Moshe is able to empower us to conquer the land on the way of the Chama, of the sun. Yeshua could conquer through the Levana, which is much smaller. Therefore, the effect, had Moshe taken us in the land, would have been a Geula Mitzvah Shlema. That's why he demanded Tzaddikim. He demanded that we conquer the land of 7, like we learned in the Maimer. Therefore, it wasn't a complete Geula. So now we have to decide what's the whole story of the Meraglim. As will be said coming up in the Maimer that we learned this week and last week, which is the Maimer Shlach L'Chov Tavshin Yirav, 1951. Okay. This is not an easy Sicha that comes afterwards. It's a difficult Sicha to learn even today. But the idea of learning the early years is that in the early years, difficult subjects were discussed, whether it is very strong hiskash sichas or strong demands of bittul, avoida, rebbe, that are not maybe going to be easy for the casual listener. But we only have the Rebbe's talk, and the Rebbe refers to it in Igris, so surely it's something that should be meant. So the Rebbe says like this: we spoke in the Maimer. I'm just going to go back and forth because there's some footnotes on the Sicha. That we learned that one of the things that with the Meraglim were lacking, because they said Eretz Yisroel, this is an intimidating land, is because they weren't subscribing to the nesius, the empowerment that they would get from Moshe, that they shouldn't be intimidated by all the great, huge obstacles that they felt, that they saw in Eretz Yisroel, that they thought we can never conquer the land, is because they weren't bottled to Moshe. If you're bottled to Moshe, there are no obstacles. So the Rebbe says, we spoke in the Maimer, that Shishiluach Meraglim de Moshe, when Moshe sent the Meraglim, and the Meraglim are bottled to Moshe. The sending of Moshe, that's why he sent them. I mean, the question of the Maimon was like we learned, why did he send them? What's the purpose? Especially if we see the outcome. Because by sending them, it's an nesius, it's an empowerment of Moshe, that that's the way you can enter the land. Because it is intimidating, but Moshe empowers us that we shouldn't be affected by all this intimidation or all these things that seem like obstacles. Because when Moshe is sending us, then it's just a mirage. So the Rebbe now adds, why? Because the land, as the Meraglim saw it on their own, because they weren't subscribing to the nesius koyach of Moshe, it is a land that consumes its inhabitants. See footnote number 3. Parshas. And therefore the Rebbe says it wasn't that the spies made up stories. If you're not bottled to Moshe, then you're intimidated by the land because it's a land of Eretz Yisroel, and therefore you must have the nesius koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu to be able to enter the land properly and not be intimidated and fall victim of the threats of entering Eretz Yisroel without the empowerment of Moshe. And the Rebbe says in footnote number 4, B'Shimas Acheres and other notes we have of this talk of the Rebbe on Tavshin Aleph, Shenisri Gam Inyan Hakushi Shebeknis La'aretz. That what's so difficult to go into Eretz Yisroel? Not just because it's Eretz Yisroel, it's a land that consumes its inhabitants. It's the palace of the king. Even a small thought that's corrupt, that's forbidden, which maybe wouldn't be considered anything in Chutz La'aretz. It's as if you did a severe sin outside of Eretz Yisroel. Because in the palace, even the smallest thing is counted as a horrible transgression. Right? Tashbat Skatim he gives a reference to this idea. So the Rebbe says now the Rebbe says Ashvera in you. That we want to add this idea that you must have Moshe's nesius koyach for Moshe to enter Eretz Yisroel is applicable till today. Why? The Rebbe says Bagdama to explain. Although we went into the land and we went with Joshua, we didn't go in. Moshe, the servant of Moshe. But once there was the destruction, and the exile from Eretz Yisroel. We're holding, like the Jewish people were holding in the desert, of before we're entering the land as we would enter with Mashiach, with a full, final, complete redemption. I.e., the Rebbe saying is that now going to Eretz Yisroel is like going to Eretz Yisroel before when the Jewish people in the desert, when they went out of Mitzrayim. It's been a restart. The Kivan Shekain, if that's the case, a person, a chassid, must know. You can't just show up to Eretz Yisroel and say, I'm making Aliyah, I'm coming to Eretz Yisroel. You can't go to Eretz Yisroel unless you've been given the empowerment Like Moshe empowered Klal Yisrael through the Meraglim, you can't go to Eretz Yisrael unless you get an empowerment from the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation, Kvoi Kedushas Marachami Adon from the Rebbe. The Rebbe saying the Friedrich Rebbe that applies to the Rebbe. Kivan Shal Eretz Mitzad Atzma, because the land on its own is Eretz Achelis Yishveh. It's a land that will consume you. If you don't have the nesius koyach of Moshe Rabbeinu, it could actually be counterproductive going to Eretz Yisrael without getting a hirah or a bracha from the Rebbe or being sent by the Rebbe, saying it the way it is. This may not go down easy for some people, and I've discussed it with people before, and it doesn't go down easy with people. It doesn't, just because something doesn't go down easy doesn't change the fact. The Rebbe says in here's footnote number 9, again, editor's edition. If the Rebbe saw all this, it's possible, although it's not edited by the Rebbe. Kinira. Beglal yachas hashlish and hagas hamedina el ha'olim shirtzainim linahel orachayim b'derech hatayr mitzvahs. The Rebbe said, footnote says, seemingly what the Rebbe was referring to, why it's Eretz Achelis Yishveh, why you need a special nesius koyach, because it's a modern state now that it's possibly intimidating for those who want to live a Jewish life in Eretz Yisrael. There may be some obstacles from the state itself that are not allowing a person to live a life of Torah mitzvahs. Everyone take it as they understand it. The Rebbe said it seems like the Rebbe has come from the Rebbe. Specifically, when it comes to education, the Rebbe spoke about this in Lag BaOmer of that year, Siman Chaf Aleph Eilach. So the reason why it's Eretz Achelis Yishveh is because it's going to affect the education of the children, and you need a special nesius koyach for Moshe. The Rebbe adds, a person may make their own calculations and conclusions. Like this Goydel HaMailish Eretz Yisrael, how great it is to go to Eretz Yisrael. To the point, if a person just walks 4 arm lengths in Eretz Yisrael, such a thing. All you have to do is walk the streets of Eretz Yisrael, and you're a person who has a world to come. Footnote number 6 is the Gemara Ksubis. He's speaking Hebrew. It's amazing. The Rebbe says in Yiddish, you can't even say how great it is that you could walk 4 feet, 4 arm lengths in Eretz Yisrael and speak Lashon HaKodesh. The Rebbe says that doesn't change the fact. You have to know. The situation today is without having a nesius koyach, it is dangerous to go because it's a land that consumes its inhabitants. May not go down easy by people, and I thought long if I should teach this class, but it's part of the Sicha, and the Rebbe said it, and the Rebbe refers to it, so we're going to learn it, whether it goes down easy or not. And therefore, we shouldn't go to Eretz Yisrael without getting a bracha or empowerment from the Rebbe. Moshe Rabbeinu should be the Moshe of our generation. It says, in Esefes, there's other additions to the Sicha. It says, Ephraim, we know the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that the tribe of Ephraim broke out of Egypt and tried to go early to Eretz Yisrael, make Aliyah before the time. It went 35 years before. I think it was 30 years before. They wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. The leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, they didn't ask Moshe permission. Whether Moshe was already the leader at that time in a revealed way is another question. But they didn't have a nesius koyach from Moshe, and they were all killed in the desert. Modern Sanhedrin says Atzamis of Yevashis, the prophecy of Yecheskel, Atzamis Yevashis, according to some opinions, these are the bones of the Chatzi Shevet Ephraim that were killed on the way to Eretz Yisrael. You try to go in without having the nesius koyach from Moshe Rabbeinu. Those who were sent by the Rebbe to Eretz Yisrael, then they have the empowerment from the Moshe of our generation. That they could go into Eretz Yisrael the proper way. The Rebbe said, but if you don't have the nesius koyach, you don't have an hayirah from the Rebbe. The Rebbe is saying you shouldn't go. I'm just saying what the Rebbe says. There are those from that thing. It's still Rebbe called over. Why do I have to ask the Rebbe? You don't have to ask the Rebbe everything. The person says to them, he or she says to themselves, I said, Yesh Tainu is a Shulchan Aruch. Open up the Shulchan Aruch. Yesh legamach b'kot goy. I also have a head on my shoulders. I wrote a good cup, and I know how to zone this shabbos. Rebbe says, you have a good head? Okay, no. You shouldn't have any iron heart to how smart you are. I could also figure it out. Open the Shulchan Aruch, and I could see myself if I should go to Eretz Yisroel or not, or anything else, whatever. I don't have to ask the Rebbe everything. I could go in the Omer Pam for the Shmarach HaMe'admer. So that's a person who thinks like this. The Rebbe once said, "Bitoi," the expression "Sam Pasajnik," which is in Russian, means I'm also a shoemaker, a sandler, a person who makes a sandal. What's this? Right? It says, Yesh Sipra, this guy who is a Gentile. Shenichnas Yehudi the base. A Jew once went to a Gentile's house, evidently in Russia. Russia tefillin, he saw tefillin. What's a guy doing with tefillin? He's in a bite. He wanted to get the tefillin out of the Gentile's house. Where did he get these tefillin from? With an excitement, he asked him. The Gentile said, it wasn't sure if the Jew wanted to buy it. If he wanted to buy it, if he wanted to find out who he stole it from, because obviously the guy doesn't just have tefillin to sell. Like someone showed at 770 to say, I want to sell my tefillin. It wasn't Jewish. So he said, yeah, Sam Sapashnik. I made it myself. Claimer, I need Batsmi Sandal, but to find Batsmi. He goes, what do you mean? I made the tefillin myself. Obviously he's lying. Moving the other side. So the Rebbe says, understood, sign for the Shemarach HaMe'admer. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, what does it mean that he made it himself? He thinks he has a good head. He thinks he's a sandler. He thinks he's a craftsman. He can make it. Same thing. You think you understand it. You don't have to ask the Rebbe. It's like the person says, I'm also a shoemaker. The Rebbe says, so too, you can apply this example of the person who says, I made the film myself. So what we're talking about, the subject, same thing, a person thinks that you don't have to ask the Rebbe about it. And you could yourself figure it out. And it's so the Rebbe, you don't have to ask the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, and again, Rishima Acheres, in another addition, in other notes of this talk, after the early years, we don't have so much, it wasn't always that this is summer months. It wasn't always, you see a lot of times there's missing things in the early years. Either someone wasn't there, they didn't remember, they didn't write it down. This is 1951. So in another Rishima, the Rebbe told about a person who was a misnagid. He didn't care to say something on Torah that didn't always have to go according to the opinions of the Rishonim, the Rambam, Rashi, who's the Rishonim, the early scholars after the Talmud. The tradition is we don't argue with the Rishon. You don't argue with an Achron. You don't argue with anyone. But if you have an opinion, you could argue in yeshiva. But who are we to argue with the Rambam? You're going to say the Rambam has a pshat and I disagree with the Rambam. I disagree with Rashi. And the Chassid would never say that. So he said, what did the Misnagid? Why would he argue with the Rishon? He said, "My Yashmasi, why am I to blame? What was my fault? Just because I was born after the Rashba, 1,000, 1,500 years, 1,200 years, 800 years after the Rashba lived 800 years ago. Because not just because I was born 800 years later means I can't argue with him. So I'm not subscribing to the fact that the age makes a difference or time makes a difference. I'm even young. All right, so short Sicha. Next week we're going to learn the Maimer of Korach. I want to be able to do even a first few oasis tomorrow on the Maimer of Korach of Sivan and of Sivan Korach on the famous fabulous idea of the Mate Arin and the Birchas Koyanim, one famous Sichas, Mamorim on the idea of Birchas Koyanim and from based on the Kuti Torah. Fascinating Maimer from I think you can look at all of this. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone.